that it is in us, and we are innately able to do what it is we need to do for ourselves, for each other. Like Sister Shay and I going into homes and talking to our people. They can't, when I first got into professional doulaing, I went on a shadow with Sister Shay. She talked to a couple for about 2 hours. You don't get that in a doctor's office. And the reason those people were so comfortable speaking to her, and they covered the gamut, there was all types of conversations. It's pregnant sister, but they talked about, you know, birthing things to the couples, you know, sexual exchanges, because they were that comfortable doing so with a Black woman. You don't get that comfortability typically in these, you know, in hospitals and clinics. Plus, the doctors and nurses are only allotted, I think it's 12 to 15 minutes per person. So there's that. Reclaiming our position. It is incumbent upon us and only us to fix what is wrong with us. And that speaks again to that power I was talking about. We have the power, but we look to doctors and these other officials as the authoritative figures, because that's how we're conditioned. 500 years of conditioning will really do a number on a people. We don't understand that we have the tools that we need. I'm going to help us to understand that again. So one of the things, okay, we have a formatting issue here. I do apologize. Hang on, please. One of our biggest issues is, in my opinion anyway, is the fact that we're not giving our babies human milk. Formula was pushed on us over the last, 50 years with the suffrage movement. Maybe it was 60 years ago, to pardon my timeline. I'm sorry, those are out of sequence. First question is, how did we get here? Forceful removement from our home environment, our home continent, into enslavement. We were forced, once we got here, we were forced to nourish and nurture the slave master's child while depriving our own. So there became this resentment of a child latching on to you, because you got to latch that slave master's baby, and you know, you didn't get to save your nourishment for your own child and bond with your own child. So resentment was built. Our bodies were used for experimentation. We started to hate our bodies. We started to view them as, or disassociate and disconnect from our bodies. There was a deliberate elimination of grand midwives. As much as I want to go into that, that is a whole nother topic. It's a real travesty, and it's unfortunate that most people don't know about it. Black women were the pinnacle of midwives. Black women knew everything. They had all these traditional roots, and they had all these traditional methodologies in treating birth. Birth is an event. It's not treated like that here. You go into a hospital and you go into an assembly line sort of production. Get them in, get them out. If you don't go fast enough, get them induced. You know, if it doesn't go fast enough, get a cesarean. Doesn't matter if you're healthy, we got to get this bed. So we're disconnected. And this is the way we view things now. And it's so wrong, from the way we lay in the bed to deliver, to the way we're kicked out, you know, within 24 to 48 hours. Birth is a production in terms of when we look at African tradition. The village midwives, you know, depending on the culture, we know Africa is not a monolith. So we're not going to split hairs about that. But in most cultures, it is a production. It involves several women. Sometimes it involved the village chief to bless the baby. However they did it, it's a production. Feminism, we could go on and on about that. It absolutely destroyed us, and it was never for us, but that's a whole nother story, right? Drug epidemic, we face social and economic barriers. A lot of mothers, Black women, have to get back to whatever work they have to get to, and you know, however amount of time they're allotted, if they're allotted any time. Racism, perceived white supremacy, of course, and out ignorance. We have been so disconnected that you wouldn't believe the stories that I hear and the myths that are still prevailing about breastfeeding. Maybe about 99%, 98% of my clients have issues with lactation that are solely in their head. They're solely in their head. And then the sisters who don't want to breastfeed, they have so much misinformation, and it's hard. Oftentimes it's not easy for me to convince them that what I know are the facts and what they know are the myths. That's how ingrained and how disconnected we are. All right. So let's go back to that slide number 4, and let's see if I can figure out I just want to inform the people who are here who are not in birth work about, I want you to leave with some more information, you know. I do not know why I can't get to the top of this. I want to tell you about some of the dangers of formula. Formula companies have done a number on us. They used to be in partnership with hospitals. A lot of mothers and families did not know this. Hospitals were given incentives by formula companies, and they would give you, they would give hospitals samples, and full size samples, to give to mothers to get them hooked on this formula, because you leave the hospital with something. And again, the hospital and the doctors are these authoritative figures to us, right? So we leave with what they've given us, and we think of it as that is the gospel. This is the law. They know what they're talking about. Let me do what they do. So they leave you with some Similac or Enfamil. You're going to go home and you're going to give that to your baby. What I do as a lactation counselor is I assess latching and feeding processes. Breastfeeding is not supposed to hurt. If it hurts, something is wrong. Again, I'm giving you all some information so that if you do know somebody, you'll be better armed, because these are things that people just don't know. I'm having a really difficult time with this one slide. I may have to skip it. Formula babies tend to suffer diarrhea more often. Breast milk is a living and breathing organism that conforms to the particular child. Even if a mother is nursing in tandem, 2 different children, the saliva from the baby's mouth communicates with the mother's breast and lets the mother know what is needed for that particular child. People don't know this. Can formula do that? Of course it cannot. It's dead. It's not a living organism. It has no way to communicate. It just is what it is. And if you're mixing it with your water from your tap, whatever pathogens are in there, you know, whatever chemicals or whatever is in that water, you're also giving that to your baby. Breastfed babies have higher IQs. This is evidenced. This is evidence-based. There's evidence-based research on that. This is a real thing. Formula-fed babies are typically at greater risk for diabetes and Parkinson's later in life. They lack beneficial bacteria in their intestines and the microbiome to help them digest food and fight germs. Colicky babies tend to be formula-fed babies because their digestive tracts are not in agreement with whatever is in that formula. They don't develop antibodies when their mothers are exposed to common viruses, because formula is what? It's dead. It doesn't have that. Baby formula manufacturers would like mom to believe that their products are viable alternatives for infant nutrition, but formulas of all kind are inherently very different from breast milk. You can say that, you know, they can sort of pitch it that this brand of formula is as close to breast milk as you can get, but it really is, that's false advertising. I don't know why formula companies are allowed to do that. I can't remember the doctor's name, but there's a doctor who said that we can compare formulas. We can compare formula to breast milk the same way we compare somebody standing on the roof being closer to the moon. I love that analogy because that's how far away it is. It's not true. You can say it, but it's not true. Infant formulas are derived from cow's milk or soy milk, obviously not human milk. The protein in cow's milk and soy milk is not only different from human breast milk, but there's much less protein in human milk. Cow's milk is designed for cow babies. I don't have to tell everybody this. Again, just want people to leave with a little bit more information so that you can convey these things in your own communities. A lot of the times, undigested proteins from cow milk and soy milk pass through the baby's stomach into the intestines, where they can cause allergies and lead to asthma. The reason that so many children in the Black community have asthma and allergies, I want to say, is directly linked to formula. Breast milk provides a lot of protection. We have a lot of pigeons and things typically in urban environments. Pigeon excrement causes asthma. Breast milk mitigates that. Formula does not. There's so many factors. I know you would never think a pigeon, but they do. There's a lot of things that we contend with. And when a baby is given breast milk, they're given so much more to defend themselves with against all of these pathogens in the environment and just in the world. All right, and we talked about this a second ago, but additionally, many infant formulas are powdered and need to be reconstituted with water. So whatever toxins are present in the water supply will also be poisoning that baby. And I say poisoning because I mean poisoning. This is why babies get diarrhea. This is, again, why they get colicky. This is why they get indigestion. They can't communicate to you, but you just know you have a crying baby and you don't understand, or why they may get reflux, right? Most local water supplies contain chlorine, heavy metals like lead, bacteria, fluoride, and other toxins. Research is now reporting that formula-fed babies consume dangerous quantities of fluoride and lead and chlorine because they drink formula made from tap water. That's typically what people do. They get some tap water and they mix their formula. And I know people are thinking, well, we've done this for years, it has happened, but think of all the health issues that people have. When you breastfeed a baby for 2 years, you're protecting not only the baby, but you protect yourself and 2 generations behind that baby. For every 2 years, you're protecting 2 generations. That's wild. And I feel like people don't understand and they don't know this. And again, this is all evidence-based. This is not me talking. These are real benefits. All right, for these reasons alone, commercial baby formulas are not a healthy alternative to breast milk. Black women need to understand this, and I would love it if it's not medically necessary, it really should not be an alternative. We have everything we need for our children, and not enough of us know this. All right, I will move on to the next slide. Who better to take care of us? Who better deliver our babies than our own? So we're going to slide back into doulaing in Black midwives and reclaiming our birth. From educating mothers about traditional herbs and homeopathics for reproductive health, to providing the option to birth at home, to assisting with lotus births and belly binding, midwives, doulas, and birthing sisters are an integral part of bringing our ancestors back into the world. We should not have to rely on Western medicine and disease-infested hospitals to do what we've been doing for a millennia. Again, let's start at the beginning. We don't need other people to help us do what we need to do. If you are low risk, there's no reason you cannot get a doula or a midwife, or, and it's funny because many of us have been doulas and didn't even know it. Supporting our family members or supporting our friends during their births. You just need a little bit more formal education and some training that can be done. Other Black women, there are a lot of alternatives out here now. Doulaing is getting very, very popular, and a lot of Black women and Black organizations are leading the charge on getting these organizations up and running. So we have institutions now. What we talk about action, right? And doing and actionable items. Anyone can do this. Anyone can do this. Anyone can start by telling a pregnant sister, you don't need to go the Western route. You can inform yourself about your birth, get yourself a doula, and reclaim it. You don't need to be lying on your back. You don't need to be pumped with Pitocin. You don't necessarily have to have a cesarean. I like to speak in anecdotes. I think I might have said that in the beginning because they're relatable. Of my 5 births, and I didn't know then what I know now, I cannot say I had a single positive experience. My very first one, I was a teenage mother, and my obstetrician was trying to push me into a cesarean. I was healthy, actually no risk really, because there was nothing wrong with me, nothing wrong with my baby. And she kept trying to push it to me. I think we all know that Black infants and Black mothers face a really high mortality rate in this country. And the reason being is they don't listen to us. And they don't listen to us because they don't relate to us. That same pregnancy, I did end up getting induced, and I had also an epidural. When my baby began to come down the birth canal, I felt it. I would tell the nurse, I told the nurse, the time that rings in my mind is 4 times. I believe I told her 4 times the baby's coming. You know what she told me? She told me it's just pressure because I'm not going to be able to feel anything because of the epidural. Meanwhile, I think a person would know when a baby's coming out of their body. She went to check me and couldn't get her finger past the first notch because my baby's head was right there. And at that point, then she goes and she calls the doctor, and my baby was delivered. But they don't listen to us, is the point that I say all of that to say. They don't listen to Black women. That was my first time experiencing that sort of thing, was not my last. And my story is not unique. I hear terrible, terrible instances of treatment of Black women, particularly during labor in this country. It hasn't gotten any better. It's a good thing that it is getting attention, but these white people are so used to doing what they do, they haven't stopped. It's so ingrained in them. I don't want to misquote, but there was a study done by a medical school. I want to say it was in 2014, and they found that 40% of their white students believe that Black women didn't feel pain the way white women do. What does that tell you? We're still dehumanized. We're not they don't listen to us because they don't believe us, and they don't care to believe us. And then they think, we have thick skin and we don't feel pain. Serena Williams, she's a millionaire, very popular woman. She almost died in birth because they did not listen to her. If they ain't gonna listen to her, why are they gonna listen to me? But then why do I need them to listen to me? How about I take my birth back, get with some African-centered sisters or Black sisters, somebody, and take and do it the way that it should be done. So here's a little video that I really like. Hopefully it will play. It's in a village called Isiolo in Kenya, I believe. Oh, it looks like it's not gonna play. It's called Traditional Midwives of Isiolo. I was hoping it would play. It's really a good video. And I wanted everyone to see it because, as you can see, this woman is laboring on a dirt floor. There's feet all around her. We think, oh, you have to have a baby in the most sterile of environments. What a lot of people don't understand is that the biome in the mother's uterus or womb helps the baby prepare for the outside world. The baby comes through the vagina and ingests some of that bacteria, and those are protections. We're so divinely created that everything is accounted for. Everything there's an allotment for everything. There's an allotment for the baby coming out of the sterile environment of the womb to enter the world. The baby is introduced to the mother's bacteria as a protection. The vernix on the baby is a protector for the baby in the outside. In the hospitals, they wash it off. In typical African villages, they rub it in. Makes so much more sense to me. We are literally doing it wrong. I wish this video would have played because what they did, they gave her a really hearty belly massage, and then they delivered the baby. They slapped the baby on the butt. Baby starts screaming and everything, all is well. Baby starts nursing after that and so forth. If you get a chance, check it out. Traditional Midwives of Isiolo.
Sister, I think if you do, I think it's control and click on the picture, video will play.
Control?
Yeah, control and click.
Okay.
Ready?
I did just see a, security.
Yes.
Click control.
She also has it in protected view. So click enable editing at the top of the screen. So you can take it out of protected view.
I'm sorry, Brother Omawale, what was that?
So you have it in protected view. So click the button at the top of the screen that says enable editing.
I don't have that button, unfortunately. I don't have that option.
On the PowerPoint, on top of your page right now, where it says enable editing.
You see the yellow ribbon at the top of your screen that says protected view?
I do not see that. You can see it on my screen currently?
Yeah.
Huh.
There's like right at the top, there's a yellow ribbon that says protected view, and then there's a button that says enable editing.
I don't know why I'm not seeing what you see, but I don't see. Wait, maybe I should close the video. Oh, I see it now. Okay, I had to close the video. My video was taking up my screen.
Okay. Now, when you reshare, just make sure you click share audio as well. Like when you go to reshare, there's a button at the bottom of the share screen that says share audio.
Share computer sound. Yes, I see that. Okay.
All right. So when you get back to your PowerPoint, you should be able to press Control and click play, and it should work for you.
Okay. Thank you so much for that.
No problem.
Okay, here we go. And can we see the video okay?
Yep, we can see it.
Mm-hmm.
We don't hear the audio yet.
Yeah, it hasn't come on yet.
Okay, all right, cool.
Okay. Playful children greet you at the mouth of this mud-walled, grass-thatched hut. And it is 8:15 a.m. at Lowangila village in Isiolo, and no single man is in sight in this homestead except Noah Esekon, the hospital-trained community health worker and birth attendant. Then, a young pregnant woman walks past the women and the children towards the cattle pen. She takes little notice of them and returns wearing a grim face. She is in pain. Rose Akomol is 9 months pregnant. Labor pains began early this morning at 4 a.m. This is her firstborn. Akomol has chosen, largely for cultural reasons than cost, to give birth at home with the help of community midwives known as Ngake Fuduonok. This is her first delivery, and with her mind set on doing it at home, she takes a walk around the compound as she has been instructed by the midwives. It eases the pain of contractions and will help speed up labor. Akomol paces back to the house, where she is followed by Ngasike, one of the traditional birth attendants. She lies on the mat on the floor, and Akiru, another birth attendant, reaches out for an unlabeled medium-sized jar of cooking fat. She slowly lifts Akomol's maternity dress and, aided by a generous amount of the oil on both palms, palpates the stomach to feel the uterus. She places her left hand at the bottom of the abdomen and right hand just above it.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Do you see the skill and expertise? And this is a woman who has taken, not a single day of a class or a course. And she's checking, her fundal height, she's checking her uterus, and to me, she clearly knows what she's doing. And I just think this is amazing.
Prenatal massaging is an important technique used by traditional birth attendants. Around 3:17 p.m., one of the birth attendants signals to the rest that delivery time is 9. She lies under a tree near the homestead after the pain grows intense. The water has 2 women support Akomol's back as they urge her to take short breaths and only push when instructed.
So the mother passed out for a little bit, and that's why we witnessed she fainted. So why we witnessed the midwife, one of the midwives kind of slap her on her forehead to wake her back up.
At 4:07 p.m., the baby is born, and for a moment, the mother is overtaken by emotions. For a minute, the baby is quiet. It's a boy. One of the women picks up the baby and slaps it gently on the buttock, whereupon it lets out a sharp, piercing cry. Then he lets out a strong one before a birth attendant severs the umbilical cord.
Okay, and I'm going to stop it there. I really love that video because, again, it shows how they know what they're doing and how simple, really, the birthing process it can be. We don't need we don't have to have, if you're low risk, all these monitoring devices, and these things stress us out. They put your body into an unnatural state. You're in an unnatural position when you see this woman, they had her walking, well, she was walking on her own at first, and then initially during the descent of the baby into the birth canal, she was standing up against that tree and they were rocking her hips. These are things that we're taught as doulas, but these women, they know this stuff already. So we know things is what I'm getting at. We know what to do. We don't need everything that is pushed on us. And we have rights. We have rights and we should use them and we should assert them. The result of where we are now is Black women are less likely to seek preconception and prenatal care like doula. I'm not talking about going to the doctors. I'm talking about getting doula care. Doulas inform, we empower, and we ignite in our sisters the desire to have their birth the way they want to have their birth. So if more Black women did seek doulas, it could lower their risk factors in pregnancy and adverse outcomes in birth and postpartum. Black women are less aware of doulas. This is intentional. Black women are more likely to be subjected to verbal abuse, lack of consent, which means, they will tell you they're going to induce you or whatever procedures are going to happen versus asking for your consent to do this. We don't have a lot of autonomy in our births. I've been through it 5 times. Again, I was very, very ill-informed. I know so much more, so I can draw from my experience and tell you we're told what to do versus telling these doctors the way we want to do it. We're more subjected to verbal abuse, lack of consent, violation of our bodies, poor communication when seeking care from providers. When I say violation of our bodies, I mean these doctors and nurse practitioners doing things to us that we did not ask for, that we did not consent, and that we didn't necessarily need, like them asking me at 19 if I want to, schedule a cesarean. That's a violation. Why are you even asking me that? There's no reason other than to pay you more money. Black women undergo cesarean deliveries at a higher rate, which increases the risk of adverse and fatal complications in the postpartum period. Infant and maternal mortality rate is higher for Black women and babies than any other race or ethnicity in every US state, in some states by as much as 50%, despite socioeconomic status. Serena Williams. Black mothers have the lowest rates of breastfeeding. Breastfeeding would lower the rates of infections, obesity, diabetes, cancer in both mother and the babies. So if we had this knowledge and if we went back and reclaimed our birth the way they're supposed to be, we would be much better off physically. We really would be. Black mothers are often isolated without support and suffer from postpartum depression at higher rates because birth is not an event anymore. We have gotten away from that. Somebody has a baby, oh, such and such is pregnant. That's just about it. We're not celebrating it. We're not taking care of such and such during her pregnancy and then again after. A woman is at her most vulnerable when she's pregnant. She needs, and after she delivers, it's wild what the body, you can see the physical changes, so you can imagine the internal changes, the hormones jumping, 100%. It does a lot to us and it really should be considered. And unfortunately it's not because we've got Western ways. We've lost the it takes a village mentality and have separated from our communal traditions. We all, women, children, and our men suffer for it. We all suffer for it because men are born into it, you know, and you didn't get the nurturing that you were supposed to get in the beginning, and it carries with us throughout our lives. It has lasting effects. Again, there's no better place to start than at the beginning. Straight Black Pride movement is about finding and implementing holistic and practical African solutions. This is a solution. This is an institution we can all create ourselves. You get together a collection of women, a collective rather. You create a doula collective. You create a midwife collective. You don't have to have formal, you should get some training, of course, because you're not just going to automatically know what to do, but you don't need any white institutions to tell you that you can do this. You can do this. This is a solution. This is important. We're at war on all fronts, and I don't think enough of us understand that. This is part of that war. We have to address every facet. Everybody doesn't need to be doing everything. Every different person has a different charge. This is a charge. Recreating the village is a must for African people, people of African descent, and must be a principal tenet in our philosophies. Simply put, if it is there at the start, I believe it will be there in the end. All right, did you know, because most of us don't, I'm getting back to formula, that formula is actually dangerous. Babies suffer more from diarrhea, ear infection, and are more likely to die in infancy and childhood who are on formula. Formula-fed babies tend to have higher instances of SIDS. White women are 80% more likely to breastfeed than Black women. Do we know why? Several reasons. One, because breastfeeding support is more readily available to them and more normalized to them. During the women's suffrage movement, white women picked up bottles and stopped nursing their children. Being able to afford formula or a wet nurse was seen as a status symbol. Black women saw that as a socioeconomic power move, and we wanted to emulate the white woman because, you know, white is right, and we have to be like the cave women, right? They do things, and we assume that what they're doing is the way we need to do it because they have made themselves the standard. In the 70s, white women realized breastfeeding was the best thing for their child, and about 60% of them returned to it. By the 80s, close to 80%, and Black women trailed behind by more than 30% each decade. They got the memo, we did not. We followed them into the formulas, we didn't follow them back to breastfeeding. Black infants consistently have the lowest rates of breastfeeding initiation and duration across all of the study years that I mentioned earlier. Formula-fed babies have lower IQs than breastfed babies. I mentioned that before. Breastfed babies have significantly lower rates of asthma, allergies, eczema, autism, etc. Formula-fed babies may be at greater risk for developing, I said this already, I'm sorry. All right, and then the other things I believe I already spoke about. And in conclusion, we want to see our African families succeed and flourish by giving them all the tools and support that we can. Fathers are an integral part of the program. You are not excluded in any part of this journey. You're needed. Your encouragement, your love, and your care and concern, and your expertise. I'm glad that there are some brothers on this Zoom today taking this information in so that you can share it as well. You're just as necessary as the mothers. So it was from family we were taken, and it is back to family we must return in the spirit of Sankofa. Medase for having me, and that will conclude that presentation. So I'm completely open to Q&A at this point if we would like to talk about it.
I have a question. First, I want to say thank you for the presentation. It was fantastic. I remember when, so my children are 6 years apart, and I remember having my daughter and not going to the doctor probably up until I was like 6 months, right? And I remember the nurse saying, oh my gosh, like, why'd you wait so long? So as a doula, are you really like, are prenatal visits necessary, or is it something that you should seek if you have like a feeling something is wrong? Because really up until that point, like I just went just out of, like you would say, kind of like indoctrination, saying, oh, you have to go to the doctor. But because I was like, well, I know the routine. I've been through it before. All they're going to do is just say, I have to take this test to test for diabetes and tell me all kinds of different things. I didn't really feel like the prenatal visits were necessary, quote unquote. So what are your feelings about like prenatal visits in regards to like that whole process, the whole, process from beginning to end?
So this is multifold. And Sister Shatara, if you want to jump in here, because you might have more information on that than I do. But for me, it's a slippery slope, because we do live under the auspices of Western civilization. And you can get CPS called on you if you don't attend those prenatal visits. I personally don't think if you're growing and you know how you should be growing, if you know that by your second trimester, you should have put on about 10 pounds and your belly should be XYZ amount, because that's all they do. A midwife can check that though too. And an informed doula can as well. So it depends on your state, because unfortunately they do have, certain controls over us, and it can get tricky. I personally don't see the necessity in all of those visits. To me, it's a personal choice. If you have someone who is qualified and who can check these things, like your weight, your the size of your baby, the size of your belly, and make sure that the baby has a strong heartbeat, strong and steady heartbeat, and so forth. That's my take on it. I don't think that it's necessary that you get in for those, but you might run the risk of them calling them people on you.
Thank you.
I can chime in on that a little bit too. I think you're totally right. It's going to be totally individual and situational, because the reality is that if you don't go for prenatal care and you show up later on, 6-7 months later, you are going to have like that microscope on you as to why. And that's really looked in the medical field as negligence on your part towards your baby. So, and that happened to a client of mine. She's Filipino and her husband is white, but she chose not to do a bunch of prenatal care. And once it was time for her to have her baby, to give birth to her baby, it was a whole ordeal. They didn't want to stay in the hospital after the baby was born. They wanted to discharge early. And it was just, it was a nightmare for a new mom to have to experience CPS being called on her, like everyone in the hospital coming in and just creating a scene for nothing. That, she didn't have any complications. Baby arrived well, no issues, but we have to realize we're working within certain parameters. So I'm sorry, can you still hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, it's just one of those things where you have to assess for yourself. And I think for prenatal care within a hospital looks totally different than if you were taking charge on your own. There's just so many more things to look for than if I have diabetes or if I'm gaining weight properly. We're deficient in so many vitamins, and it's just the whole gamut of things. So if you are able to have access to a doula or any modality that is outside of a hospital, that's great. But you can do dual care just to kind of appease the system, right? So you have your team outside the hospital and then you have your team within, just so that you don't have that headache on yourself. So you could do both, because that really, Mel and I, we're trying to get more Black doulas in Massachusetts and just as a collective, but it's I think across the country there's not that many, so it's not a resource that everyone has access to, that everyone knows that's there. So that may be hard to just kind of wing it on your own, unless you're just that type of person that really researches well and knows how to put things into context for your situation. So you can always reach out to different folks for consultations and things like that. I think the point of it is to know that you have options, if that makes sense, that like the hospital isn't the end all
Yes.
be all. There are some other modalities outside of the hospital that you can reach out to.
So that raises, there's a couple of questions in the chat, and that raises some good questions, right? So one of the first question is, if you're not a doula, how do you, one, start to kind of percolate that kind of conversation in your community so that you have like this lifeline and this resource in your community, right? To your point, to say, take it back in terms of like the birthing and the education and what you need to do and ask when you go to the hospital. Or the other question to that is, how do you find a doula and make sure that the doula is good? Like, right, what is that question to say, nah, that doula is not, she's not it, right? You know, like, what do you say? What's that aha question? And then lastly, like, well, kind of going back to the first question, how do you organize like that cooperative? And to Sister Mello, what is the plan of the Straight Black Pride to make sure like the African family can have access to doulas? Because again, we talked about the CPS, and also we have to consider the financial portion of it as well. So I know it's a lot of questions in one, but basically, how do we bring that whole culture of doulas back to African people and make it accessible?
Excellent question. For me, in terms of developing a collective, Sister Shay and I are both part of an organization, a coalition called Vital Village Network. I really liked her energy, and so I approached her. Same in determining if a doula works for you. And doulas, me personally, I reject people who I'm not in line with. You know what I mean? If we're not aligned philosophically or even personality wise, then I'll pass the person off. And quite frankly, well, I won't get into that, but it's an exchange of energy, and you have to interview each other. You have to interview each other. I'm not obligated to take everybody, and like Sister Shay's not obligated to take everybody, and everybody's not gonna, jibe with us. So there does need to be, in terms of what questions, it would depend on what that person is looking for, who that person is, what they're looking for. If they're looking for somebody who isn't opposed to, let's say, circumcision or something, you know what I mean? Me, I'm pro intact. So if they ask me that, I'm gonna say no. I'm for keeping your sons intact. So we're probably not a right fit. I don't know. There's all kinds of different questions that you can ask to sift people out and to make sure that you have a good fit. What do you think, Sister Shay?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think the first step is I don't really know how to word this, but I think it's like to denormalize birth, if that makes sense. I think we've normalized it so much that we kind of go through the motions of it and we don't hold it in reverence as we should.
Oh, yes.
So
yeah,
it's just, you just kind of go through the motions of it, and it's okay, I take a prenatal vitamin. Oh, and then, around 5 months, I can feel the baby moving. But there's no real connection to your body first, preconception wise, and then that connection to your baby once you are pregnant, because it's so normalized, right? We just go through these 9 months where it's really like 10 months because you have that month of your cycle going, right? So
that's right.
There's not a proper understanding of
What it is.
the physiological aspect of conception and pregnancy and birth. So I think it starts within yourself first. If you don't have children, what are you doing to prepare your body to optimize this vessel for your baby, and so that your postpartum period is optimal as well, because you transition into a whole new journey after the baby is born.
And can I add to that? I'm sorry, can I
Mhm.
interject real quick? And just to say
Mhm.
that we're not only antepartum, we're postpartum as well. We come to
Mhm.
your home and we'll cook your meals. We'll hold your baby so you can get some rest. We're taking care of you, letting mom and father, you know, if it's a couple, sometimes it's a single mother, letting them rest, letting
Mhm.
them enjoy that first week or for however long they need us. Like, we're there to
Right.
support and extend the event, because it should be an event. I come with herbs and stuff. You know, I will do belly binding. I bind my clients and so forth. So I totally agree with what you said. It is, I know what you're saying when you say normalize it. It's like an everyday occurrence. That's how we
Right.
look at birth now. It is not an everyday occurrence.
Mhm.
There's an African proverb that says that every time a woman gives birth, she's got one foot in the grave and one foot out, because that's really how delicate the event really is. And it should be revered and it should be taken care of that way. It's not. In terms of the money question, there are doula collectives. I do provide, I don't turn anybody away. If somebody, I know I shouldn't, and I got 5 children of my own, but me, I can't turn anybody, not a sister anyway. I don't turn any Black women away. White folks got to hold their own nuts. It is what it is. I don't turn any sisters away. You need me, I'm going to be there for you in some capacity, you know, whether physically, virtually, or whatever. I do not turn sisters away. I just don't. I think we answered them all, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't want to monopolize the questions. So if anyone else wants to jump in, because I know I have a couple more that I want to ask. Does anyone else have a question? Oh, Brother Akili, you have a question? Go ahead and jump in.
Thank you. I have a question on what the man's role should be into precipitating some of these changes. I've had 3 women in my life who have been manipulated, mistreated, and even price gouged in this particular situation. So I guess, and so, you know, after the first time, since I was aware of it, I was able to present the information, and I was like, okay, A, B, and C is what they're going to try to do. But when I presented the information, it was more, since the system is so well entrenched, they opted to go through the abuse than to try to find alternatives to the abuse. So my question is, what are practical ways that we as men can say, look, this is what the system is going to try to do. And how can we, it's kind of hard, I'm trying to articulate it in a better way, but how can we say, look, I don't know. It just seems like a lot of our opinions are dismissed because we are men, but we kind of those of us who are seeing what the system is doing are being dismissed or out of hand because we're not women. I don't know if you got the question there, but I mean, does that make sense?
Yes, I understand that. And I think that just as there are men obstetricians, you know, I think women should understand that a brother can be sometimes better informed, because our people typically, well, a vast majority of the times our people are underinformed. Sisters typically tend to be underinformed. If you inform yourself, if you get the knowledge, you get this evidence-based research, or even some empirical evidence from a sister like me or Sister Shay, you are now informed. You're informed and you can inform others. If you create a child with a sister, I would think that it would be a sister who is going to take your information to heart. You know what I'm saying? If you know something that she doesn't know, a sister should listen. And I don't really know how to speak to how to get someone list to understand that you may be better informed than she is, other than to make sure you have a partner who trusts your word and trusts your judgment.
Well, I'm actually kind of speaking on a larger scale. I'm just saying, like, maybe if I have like a cousin who is about to give birth and I give her some information, and we're not necessarily particularly tight, but we're family. And so, but her mother is maybe saying, nah, that information is ridiculous. That's just that hotep stuff, in those kind of situations. How can we start to change that kind of paradigm?
Maybe get familiar with a doula sister, or, that's a really tough one. Again, there are male obstetricians. If a sister will trust a male obstetrician, she should be just as, willing to trust a brother who has information that he can share with her. This stuff, like I showed you in that one video, has been going, we have been doing our own births, and we have been taking care of each other for eons. It exists. If someone doesn't want to believe, they're just not going to believe. So I'm not really sure how. I don't ever try to change anybody's mind about anything. If you come to me for information, I'm going to give it to you. Even if you don't come to me, I'll espouse things on the internet and just put them out there. I can't change anybody's mind, even as a sister. All I can do is tell you what I know, and you can do with it as you please. I have a cousin in my own family, first cousin, as a matter of fact, who's formula feeding his baby. The mother says that, I don't know, I forgot what she said to me, but even in my own family is what I'm saying. Here I am doing this, right? And even in my own family, I have my first cousin formula feeding his baby. So we can't reach everyone.
Can I add something to that?
Please do. Yes, please do.
I think it is a larger issue, and there has to be a paradigm shift with that, because what we've done is we've taken pregnancy and birth and we've separated. So, the pregnancy is the woman's issue, right? So the men are kind of to the side, and it's not, we haven't connected the two, that this is a unit. So even during pregnancy, for the man, I would say how you start to make that shift, and it starts with one, so it's going to start with you, and it's a slow process, but once people see, right, then that lens starts to change. So you have to connect. If you have a girlfriend, a wife, whoever that's pregnant, you should be involved in every aspect of that pregnancy. She shouldn't have to go through it alone. Like, you're connecting with her and you're connecting with your baby. Men are just totally different. Men usually will connect with their children once they see how their children can interact with them. That's just how their brains kind of work. So when your baby is walking and talking and able to have that feedback with you, that's how men usually connect. And that's a long way off. So we can change that. You can connect with your baby in utero. So are you rubbing your partner's belly? Are you talking to your baby? Are you reading to your baby? Are you at the prenatal appointments? You should be at each prenatal appointment, whether it's with a midwife or an obstetrician, so that these providers see your face in the place, so that they know that you're there. But they're so used to dads not being there, because that's just the norm. And that's across cultures, especially in the US. It's just, okay, the wife, mom, whoever goes to the prenatal appointment, and they may relay information back to their partner when they get back home, but you really should be there, involved in every aspect. And this way, when you have that connection, your radar will go off when something's awry. So if you're in that appointment and this provider's suggesting X, Y, and Z, and your instinct kicks in and your gut, you like, something's like, yeah, I'm not really all set with that recommendation. You don't necessarily have to know everything. You just know that doesn't sit right with you. So then that's what sparks you to ask more questions. And then you can go home and do whatever research you need to do, or reach out to whoever you want to reach out to. But as far as family members, you can just, you give them the information, and sometimes people are ready to receive and sometimes they're not. But but you know that you've done your part. You know that, you know, you've released that kind of internal responsibility that you have towards your family to let them know something that could be of benefit to them. And then if they don't receive it, and if they're not ready to receive it, that's okay too. We all have to like walk our own journey and learn, you know, along the way. Sorry, I'm out of breath. I'm like, I can hardly breathe. I'm like going on 8 months pregnant, guys. So I'm like,
Are you
Oh,
already 8 months?
congratulations.
thank you.
Goodness.
I have no, like, everything is just squished up to like my esophagus. So
I know the feeling.
I can
So
hardly breathe. I'm sorry.
we have a question from one of our YouTube persons in Brazil. So we have a international audience, and I don't know between the two of you what your scope is. I know obviously you deal in the United States, but this is from Duarte Odara, and I apologize if I'm saying it incorrectly. He's in Brazil. He or she is in Brazil, and they want to know, are you familiar with any doula center or something like that in Brazil? So I guess that's another question, a follow-up question. How do you guys go beyond in terms of like networking? Is it just something that's done stateside, or do you have connections that are overseas?
At present, I do not, but I do belong to the LEDGE group, which is Land Economic Development Group. I forget what that last E is, who we purchased land over on the continent to develop and to, you know, eventually, hopefully have domiciles that we can have, bring our generations after us too. In addition to that, we're establishing businesses. And one of the things that I wanted to establish over there is a doula center. So that is my goal ultimately, but at present, I do not have any international connections now. Well, in the doula or
In the doula
lactation world. Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah, I mean, there's
I'm sorry,
groups
go ahead.
on-
I'm sorry, go ahead, sister.
I'm sorry, there's a few groups on Facebook that we could like throw that question out. Are there any doulas in Brazil? But like I'm just, again, I'm not well versed in just their medical system and how that works there. But if there is a doula in one of these Facebook groups that is in Brazil, like we can connect them somehow. You know, if they leave their information, we could just put it out there. Hey, someone's looking for a doula in Brazil. But the Facebook groups are really great for that, and that they are international. So if you just put it out there, hey, I have a person in whatever, Sao Paulo, Brazil, whatever, you know, is there anyone around? And if there is, they will usually pop in the group and say, hey, I'm here, and leave their information.
Yeah, that's very true. There's a lot of doula groups on Facebook. And what was the name? The person's name? I'm sorry.
Duarte Odara.
Yeah, so Brother Duarte could probably hop on Facebook and look up, you know, Brazilian doula groups or doulas in Brazil, or
yeah,
they would word it, and he'd probably find something.
Yeah,
Okay.
the groups that someone posted in a chat, there's a lot of groups that I'm personally a part of, but the ones that I interact with the most are predominantly Black and PLC groups. So there's like Black Doulas Association, National Black Doulas Association. There's a few on there.
Okay. So we have,
say too, because I'm sorry, real quick, Sister Lydia, is that I didn't emphasize that doulas also help with advocacy. If a hospital birth is necessary, we also make sure that the doctors and nurse practitioners or whoever are respecting you know, our clients' wishes, and that our client's birth is still as close. We devise something called the birth plan, where we go through a list and you know, of how our client envisions their birth and how they want it to be, and we make sure that it adheres as close to that script as possible, because rights are stripped once you get in there, because they become the authoritative figures, and we do step in like, this is what we want and this is what we want.
and so also, so kind of following up to what you're saying in the chat, one of the questions is like, what or where do you advise them to look in order to gain the knowledge to kind of get that ball rolling for like this doula co-op and network, right? And also, as you're gaining the knowledge, another question, is it expensive to have a doula compared to the conventional way? Like, what does that price look like? Is there a Medicaid? I would even ask, is there a Medicaid private insurance issue? Like, what does that pricing look like? And on average, if you have any information about that. So gaining the knowledge and the financial component.
It is costly in terms of, when you have to come out of your own pocket. Typically, when you have a baby, it's covered by health insurance. My lactation services, I can provide them up front, and then I bill my clients, and they are able to submit their bills for reimbursement. They get reimbursed. Doulas, that hasn't happened yet. There is a program. What is it called, Shay? F something? What is that program?
For
when patients or clients can get reimbursed through.
Oh, that's the flexible spending account or the health spending account. But that's money, like they are actually paying that. So that's just, they're getting like weekly out of their check. Money is going into this specific account for anything health related.
So at present, in most states, New Jersey, and I think New York has changed this, most states do not cover, or most states do not require medical insurance to cover doulas. It is an ongoing discussion, and it is, and there's a plus and a minus to that, because if that does happen, where the insurances cover us, we could then be required to be certified by some white governing organization in order to get paid through insurance. You know how they like to control everything. The same way they moved out the grand midwives is the same way they will probably try to exclude Black doulas like myself and Sister Shay from being able to get paid through the insurances. So it can be costly. It depends on what they want. Postpartum is different. It's typically hourly. Antepartum and birth also different. Typically for me, it's a package, and it can run from $1,500 to $2,000 with most doulas. A lot of doulas offer payment plans. Like I said, I don't turn any sisters down. I help my people when they need to be helped. But yeah.
To be honest with you, 2,000 is pretty affordable, because I can remember my daughter's bill and looking at like, oh my gosh, like I went in there deliberately saying to them, like, I don't want you to give me I don't want anything extra. Just give me the bed and that's it. And only to get the bill. And I was like, well, I might as well have just took everything that they gave me, because I mean, if somebody would have told me like a doula was available for 1,500 to 2,000, that would 9 months would have been more than enough for me to put it in the FSA, save my money, versus going through, I mean, like, and that information is important, because when you think about it, like literally just for sitting in the hospital, I can't even tell you how much money. And not to mention, like, even with my first son who had a medical complication, that I mean, that bill was ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? So I think what they're putting out here now, I know for a lot of people, is that they're under the impression that midwives and doulas are unaffordable, when in actuality, they really are way more affordable than paying for the hospital and then potentially having that go on your credit because you can't pay the hospital back for whatever service you have. So if everyone is not, for people who don't have children, between 1,500 and 2,000 is way affordable, even, versus having insurance and going to the hospital. That's just been my experience. So,
And I hope that that further becomes the attitude, because it really is. I'm sorry, Shay, you want to say something?
Well, I was going to say, just adding to like cost wise, it definitely is going to vary state by state. But like for Massachusetts, a couple of our hospitals here do have doula programs. So the hospital itself will provide you with a support person. So you could check whatever state that you're in, just call around to your different hospitals to see if they have a program like that. And, you know, you'd benefit from having, you know, that person without the cost being incurred by you. And for if someone doesn't have, you know, $1,500 to $2,000, you can, there's tons, I mean, Google is great, right? Just Google. I mean, the things that, like, if you can't afford a doula, if it's just not something that you can do, the things that you should do is like just Google, like, what are hospital interventions? What are induction methods? What are my pain management options? What happens postpartum after I have my baby? What are those procedures? And what are the newborn procedures? Those are the things that you should know, which your provider's not telling you. This is my third birth, right? Your doctor's not sitting down and saying to you, okay, when you get to the hospital, X, Y, and Z is going to happen. That doesn't happen. So just research that and make a list for yourself. You can start doing this stuff for yourself for free. Just Google all of those things and Google the rights of a childbearing woman. So that's all of your rights within a hospital setting. So you don't give up all of your rights as soon as you sign that consent form for care when you get into a hospital. And just because you've signed that consent form doesn't mean that you can't withdraw that consent at any time too.
And I'm sorry. I think
I was just going to say, create a folder for yourself with all of these things, and you're fully equipped.
And I think at the top of the discussion, the two of you said something that I think is really important, and that's to really understand that this is an experience, right? You know, it's a wonderful experience. And so I would also, for me, now you see like a lot of Yurugu now are becoming midwives and doulas, and what they're doing is peddling that same, you know, money machine, and we don't want that. Yeah. So you want the doula is an experience, right? The midwife is an experience. You don't want to necessarily be in this big white room, this stark white room with all these machines. So I would like for people to really understand when we say we're taking our bodies back, that's everything. You know what I'm saying? We're taking everything back. So, you know, a lot of times, a lot of our concepts and how our ways of lives are repackaged, and they use the names, and it's not necessarily the experience we're looking for. So just remember that it's an experience, not just, you know, being in the hospital. But we have some questions, some actually really good questions, and I think both of you ladies can address this. The first question is,
wait a minute, I'm sorry, Sister Lydia, real quick before we advance, I just want to say that someone had asked, how do we do this? Like I said earlier, Sister Shay and I happen to be volunteers at the same coalition. I liked her energy, so I approached her. Next thing I know, there was a sister also in our coalition who became Boston's only Black midwife, Black CPM, and then we all three ended up working together. Just find people, find your tribe, and build it. That's it. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sister Lydia.
No, thank you. That's good information, and I think that's an important message. Really, now we should really be getting back to connecting with people. Relationships are going to be important, and we got to kind of change, like shift, right? Really, when we talk about like a paradigm shift, that's one of the shifts that we need to make, and that's reconnecting with people and building relationships. But one of the questions in the chat, I think, is a great question. Well, both of them actually. One, what is the difference between a doula and a midwife? And the second one is, can a man become a doula? Why or why not?
Okay, so doula is not medical personnel. A midwife is. We are support people. So there's that. Shay, if you want to add something to that. No? Okay. And of course, by all means, a brother can become a doula. Why not? If you're interested and you're passionate about this, and it might even be a good thing to see brothers in the field, you know, it might help. Who asked earlier? I think it was Brother Akili asked earlier how he could, you know, convey information and it be received well by him being a man. Maybe if there were more brothers in the field, that would be the case. I can't see why not. There's a really popular Black lactation IBCLC, which is an internationally board certified lactation consultant, who was a Black man out of, I believe he's out of Atlanta. He's a lactation consultant. He goes around, you know, telling sisters and helping the women how to successfully have a successful breastfeeding experience. So absolutely, why not? And you know what? And even in that video, I stopped it, but there was a brother who was part of that midwife collective in Isiolo. There's one brother in the village who's part of the midwife collective. So if it's okay on the continent, then it should, you know, it's okay over here.
Yeah, there's a male Black doula, but I think he's in Canada, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
And that's like the only one that I know of. And there are a few white male doulas in the States.
Okay.
But as far as like the doula midwife thing, the doulas, I mean, the simple way to put it is that we don't do anything medical. So we're not going to do any internal exams. We're not going to do some of those things. But I think depending on your training, like one of the trainers that I went to, that's a traditional African training, is that we are encouraged to check our clients' blood pressure. So that would be considered medical, but for our traditions, we want to make where our moms are experiencing preeclampsia at higher rates. We want to make sure that we're checking their blood pressure periodically. So it all depends. So you can, simple things like that, you know, I would do, and that because I've been doing this for so long, there are some medical things I know and can give that information, but I'm not going to be your medical provider. A midwife is going to be your medical provider, where she actually is the one that is catching your baby. A doula is not going to catch your baby.
If a midwife needed to, you know, provide fluids for you because you're dehydrated, a midwife can do that. They can do that in your home. They will have the apparatus for that, and they have the medical clearance to do that.
Right.
Someone had, I think it's Sister, and I apologize if I say it wrong, Sister Faye Africa. She asks, how do we sell that birth is an experience beyond having a baby?
Well, $1 million question. And the thing that Shay and I are both passionate about is reclaim it. We're reclaiming it and restructuring our minds and how we look at birth. It's not just, oh, such and such is pregnant. It's, oh, a village person, you know, an ancestor is going to be returned. We need to all be on our, you know, our toes and help the, you know, this sister who is the vessel for the return of this ancestor have the most pleasurable and positive experience possible. It's not just such and such is pregnant. We get, you know, if we get our minds off that and look at it as an event, both before and after, we can change the paradigm. Like Sister Shay said earlier, it's about changing that paradigm, but we have to reframe our thinking about it. Even us, the ones who have babies, we even think, because we've been conditioned that way, oh, she's pregnant, or oh, I'm pregnant. No, it's more than that. It is an event. You know, it should be viewed as an event. And that's how we change that. We have to repackage it and reframe our thinking. That's the short answer. Shay?
Yeah, no, I mean, I totally agree with that. Just, it's an experience. I mean, there's so many facets to this, right? There's so many variables. So while we're looking to have this great experience, we're also being mindful of all the other stuff, and the balance between the two is where the work comes, because especially for Black women. And like you mentioned earlier, you know, our mortality rates, and we always talk about mortality rates, but we don't talk about the morbidity. So there's women leaving the hospital disabled, not being able to care for their babies at home. So the mortality and the morbidity rates are astronomical for Black women. So it's like preparing them for this wonderful birth experience, but also letting them know what else needs to be on their radar so that they're able to have that experience that they want. And don't leave with birth traumas. Don't leave being, you know, sexually assaulted. You know, it's medical rape. Not leaving, not mentally whole. So looking at this as a holistic event, as you say, right? So it's not just thinking, oh, healthy mom, healthy baby in a physical way, but how are they leaving this birth mentally? And your baby can also experience trauma. So we look at babies and babies having all these issues, and that's because they've experienced the birth trauma. And that's just not a great way for your baby to, you know, enter the world.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. And to the sisters. All right. Brother, I want to say, Brother Elias, he had a comment, so I just want to throw that out there. He states that he believes that this experience goes well beyond the immediate benefits to the point of establishing trust and enforces the positive importance of the self, which translates to understanding value of the self and the will. So that was his thought. Brother Elias, if I didn't, you know, relay that correctly, let me know. But so this is,
thank you.
No problem. So this is where we are. I hear the session and I'm like, you know what? I want to start a doula collective. I want to reimagine, you know, what birthing is. And, you know, even take it a step further, even have like a global approach. Like what do you recommend our first steps? Like what do I do first?
Get informed, understand what doulas are, what doulas do, and how you can be a doula. I mean, it's not everybody's charge. We all have different charges in this life, right? I feel like this is my charge. This is what I actually do love to do, that and lactation consulting. It comes pretty naturally for me. Just get informed. People don't even know what doulas are. Get the information out there that this is what this is. This is the beginning again, right? And we're at war. We're so many sisters, man. My clients, so many sisters are involved in CPS because of them not having advocacy. They do us so dirty, it's not even funny. So as we have these conversations and we make it more known that this is out here for you, you're not alone. You don't have to go home alone with your baby if you're a single mother after delivering. Like, we're here so that, like Sister Shay said, you're not traumatized. Or if you are traumatized, let me help mitigate it. Because even sisters with the stories, we could get into stories all day. They're heartbreaking. They're really bad. And a lot of people get to me after the fact, you know, and I end up being their postpartum doula. And then they've already had the trauma because they didn't know until after they had their baby that I'm available, or a sister like Shay is available. So have the conversations. The beginning, this is we can create institutions. We really can. Sister Shay, me, and like I said, that other sister who's the midwife, are working in tandem now. We have created an institution just by talking to each other and augmenting each other. It's that simple. It can happen. We're doing something to mitigate, you know, these issues that we're talking about. It really is. Anyone can do it.
Yeah, I'll add to that too, that, you know, what is the saying that all skin folk aren't kinfolk? Mm-hmm. So when you're looking to start a collective, just because, you know, you may see someone that presents as Black or person of color, whatever, they're not going to have the same agenda as you, as always. So the vetting process is deep. And you just have to figure out, really look into their background and their work to really see if it aligns with yourself, because I've referred some people just off of surface knowledge, and come to find out they probably weren't the best people to refer to. So yeah, it's you really want to know a person's history and
Find your tribe.
true agendas. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Sister Shatara,
Uh-huh.
I think you went out for a little bit. You want to
Oh,
repeat
I'm
what you
sorry.
said? You went out for a little bit.
Oh, I was just saying that, like, as far as like the collectives, when you're trying to get a group of people together, that, the saying that all skin folk aren't kinfolk. So you really want to vet whoever it is that you're trying to bring on and collaborate with, to make sure that their agenda aligns with your agenda. And that you just don't have like this surface knowledge of the work that they're doing that may appear really great, but below that surface it's probably not the best.
Thank you. And I don't want to monopolize the questions. This is a subject near and dear to my heart, but I want everyone to have the opportunity to ask questions. So before I ask another question, does anyone else have anything they want to add? Any questions or comments?
Looks like Sister Faye Sayo was asking, how do we globalize that birth is an experience and provide awareness? And that goes to what we were saying earlier, continue having the conversation. People don't know that doulas are an option. They don't know that they have a right to withdraw consent once they sign a consent agreement in the hospital. Have the conversation, become informed, talk to doulas, bring up the word doula when you know of a pregnant person, a pregnant family. Just keep having the conversations. Now that you've been on this Zoom and you've got a little bit more information, discourage people from going directly to formula. The same way that we start a shift in any other arena is the way that we'll start a shift here. Have the conversation, inform people, bring it to the forefront. It's getting talked about more, but not enough. We know that Black maternal, the way Black women are treated is abhorrent. It's finally being discussed, but it's still happening because these white folks have been doing it for so long. So we change things by talking about them and then doing things about them as we've discussed.
So a quick question for either one of you. Outside of the doula services you provide, do you guys, do you queens do any outreach, like, particularly to like young women, high school, college, not only in terms of like what a doula is, but just health, you know what I'm saying, like body health or anything like that related to up into like childbirth? Do you guys do any sort of outreach like that in the community?
I don't do outreach like that, but I volunteer. I used to volunteer physically for a baby cafe. Baby cafes around this country, they're not literal cafes. What they are groups of mothers, breastfeeding mothers who need support. And I offer that for free. I give that for free. I used to do it physically, but pre-COVID. Now that COVID is here, I do a virtual one on Mondays, and I also man a warm line. It hasn't picked up a whole lot of traction. A warm line is basically, hotline is for emergencies. A warm line is for concerns that you may have. So I also man a warm line. I don't do that, Sister Lydia, necessarily, but my plate is also really, really full. But that is important to happen as well, because that's where it has to happen. I did try at one point to get into the high schools, and it was not received well, because I thought that it would be a good chapter to discuss in health classes. They discuss sex, they discuss condoms, and they discuss STDs. I thought the benefits of nursing versus formula would fit into that curriculum. Really good friends with a woman who's a principal at a school, and she told me that it would be a battle. They wouldn't be able to So I did try at one point to do something like that. She wanted to point me towards pregnant women, pregnant girls, because we have schools here for pregnant girls. I believe it's called Crenton, I think. And I thought they're good, but they're probably a little more ahead of the children who are not pregnant yet. They need that information too, don't get me wrong, but I wanted to get to the people who are not even pregnant yet, and and boys too, so that boys will have this information as well.
Yeah, I'm not currently doing any type of outreach either. That's something that I plan to do within the village that we're both in, to set up something like that. That's in the works, a goal of mine.
You're a whole 8 months pregnant. You good?
I know. Well, virtual. We can do it virtual.
Virtual.
We have another question in the chat, and this is actually a really good question. Afronade has asks, what about women who've had a hard time producing breast milk, where there's an issue? What are your, how do you work with that?
Case by case basis. A lot of times women think they're not producing enough because babies eat so frequently, newborns eat so frequently, but their bellies are about the size of a cherry or a grape in the beginning. Plus, breast milk is the perfect food, which means the little bodies have to do little to no work to digest it. It goes straight through them. So they will be wanting to eat every 10, 15, 20, 25 minutes. So a lot of the times there's not even an issue with being able to produce. If there is if there genuinely is an issue with being able to produce, there are several things that we can try to get it going. There's something called power pumping. There are milk banks. If someone is really that, I have yet to really see someone who was not able to produce. Most times it's in their heads. It truly is. They're expecting to see babies drink, because bottles, right? We're so conditioned to bottles, and a baby drinking 3 ounces at a week or 10 ounces at 2 weeks or whatever, that it's ingrained in them that the baby needs to be. Babies are babies. If they're having pee and poopy diapers, and if they're growing on the curve, they're fine. But if someone is having genuine issues, there are things we can do. There are galactagogues, which are supposed to help produce milk. These are natural things like fenugreek that are supposed to help increase milk supply. Some people do placenta encapsulation, and they'll take their placenta, and that can help. Other people, it has the exact opposite effect, and it will dry their milk up. But there are things that we can do and that we can try. And it's good for a lactation counselor to talk to a person to make sure that milk production is actually an issue, because most of the time it's not. Shay?
Yeah, I would say there's only a 1 to 2%, 1 to 2% of women that cannot biologically produce milk. So that's a really small number. So if someone is having a true supply issue, it's almost always hormonal. So it could be, so if you're working with a lactation consultant or anyone that's well-versed in lactation, they will usually ask if you've had your thyroid checked, because your thyroid hormones play a huge part in how you produce prolactin. And so your prolactin is what makes the milk, and oxytocin is what releases it. So if there's any type of disruption in all of your hormones, you won't be able to produce as much milk. But like Mello said, there are things to jumpstart that. So that's why it's extremely important to initiate breastfeeding within the first hour of giving birth, because you want to send that hormonal feedback loop to get that initiation started. And really within that first 6 weeks, your supply is established. So if you're having issues after that, there's things that we can do to help you to produce more milk. But the unfortunate reality is you probably won't produce as much as you would have had you had the proper
in the beginning.
like support within that first 6 weeks. But that doesn't mean you can't still feed your baby breast milk. Any amount of breast milk is beneficial. So you may, it again, it's case by case, but that's the number one issue that we see with women in thinking that they're not producing enough milk. And it's usually because of, again, hormonal or environmental factors. If you're stressed out and you have cortisol, a high level of cortisol in your body, you're not going to make milk, right? So those are all, that's why I say it's all hormonal. And again, your environment can affect your hormones. So we just try to address the issue and not I should say we address the root, not just the issue.
And I want to reiterate that it's 98% of the time in a woman's head that they're not producing enough milk. That's rarely the case. It is a myth. And we're here, that we help to dispel that. So.
Right.
And we have a question from YouTube. Brother Rich, he wants to know, can doula services be done virtually?
Oh, absolutely. We've had to adapt because of COVID, right, Sher?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. A lot of the antepartum, it can be done during birth too. I have coached people via computer, while they were, and I should have, and and taught them things via via sharing, just like we shared earlier. So yeah, it can be, is the short answer. Definitely.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, and back to the breastfeeding and the mother. How long should a woman be able to produce milk for? Because I've seen women who breastfeed their baby. Well, it's a grown child, like in kindergarten. Is that like real? Like, are they producing milk for that long?
Yes. There are villages in China where, and I think this is a bit odd, where the women nurse grandparents who are no longer able to like eat solids. Have you seen that, Shaq? So,
yeah, and in Asian countries, they nurse until their children are about 8 years old. So as long as your breasts are being stimulated, they will make milk. So as long as they're being sucked on, they will make milk.
That's right.
I did not know that.
And they will make, the nutrition changes, of course. So it's just like if you go to your doctor, they say that the recommendation is to exclusively breastfeed for 6 months because, and then they say after 6, your pediatrician will say, well, after 6 months, it has no more nutritional value. And I think they need to change that language a bit, in that for the first 6 months, breast milk is your baby's sole nutritional complete nutrition. But after that, after 6 months, you can start introducing solids. So that's where that kind of language comes from, not meaning that it loses any nutritional value, because just as Mel mentioned earlier, breast milk is living. So it's always changing. And the value, the nutritional value, the caloric intake, the fat content, antibodies, stem cells, all of that is changing for the age of whoever is sucking on the breast, right? So like, even if your husband were to suck on your breast, that breast milk will look different than the breast that your baby was sucking on, because it got that feedback from your partner's saliva. Yeah. And how that works is the same holes that the breast milk comes out, the saliva goes back in through those same holes as the baby is sucking. So that's how that feedback works.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's wow. Yes, that is why when the child stops drinking milk, the milk will dry up. Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think I've gotten a lot of information. Well, let me backtrack. Sister Mello, Sister Shatira, do you want to let the people know where we can contact you if we have any information, or, even want to get with you about like the, starting a co-op in our area? You know what I'm saying? How would the people get in contact with you?
I can be reached at Mellow Mamas MA for Massachusetts at gmail.com. So Mellow Mamas MA at gmail.com. I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah, I can throw my info in there too. Oops, I didn't mean to press send so fast.
Okay, so Sister Shatira, I see you're at thebirthco.com. So thebirthco.com. And Sister Mello is mellowmamasma@gmail.com. And also, Sister Shatira, you have it at smith@thebirthco.com.
Yeah.
Do you know of, or do you guys have any upcoming events with doulas? Anything coming up? I know COVID is like trying to throw a wrench in everything.
I know.
But do you guys have anything, or do you know of anything that is up and like coming up?
No, not that I know of.
Well, yeah, there's constantly things going on. There's constantly women. My suggestion is what Sister Shatara said earlier, is to search these Facebook groups if you're genuinely interested. These Facebook groups and these people are always doing something. Black doulas assisting Black mothers is a good one on Facebook. Black Doula Collective, like Sister Shay said, is a good one. Black doulas and midwives is another good one. There's a lot. If you just put it in if you put it in the search bar, there's too many events for me to even recall. I'm kind of evented out, to be honest with you. Especially whereas everything is virtual now. I haven't been paying close attention, so none come to my mind specifically, but I see lots of things going on. And there's all kinds of doulas too, let me tell you. So there's antepartum, there's birth, there's postpartum, there are, what is it called? There's abortion doulas, not my area. There's infant loss doulas. There's, what else, Shay? I know there's more.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's becoming a fad at this point. People are just throwing the doula off of anything. So whatever you can think of, I'm sure you can find a doula for it. Not that it's
necessary
like,
or
necessary, right?
Yeah, there's doulas, which it is people sort of co-opting it now. But like infant loss is an important one. Not my area, too sad for me. But that is important to have that support, because women are expected, and fathers are expected to just go on with their lives after suffering a loss like that. So that exists as well. But yeah, hop on Facebook. There's a lot of groups and there's a lot of information there.
Thank you so much. Thank you too so much. The information that you provided today obviously is like you can't even know how helpful it is. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you for having us.
No problem. I'm glad I saw this last minute. See, I was scrolling Facebook. I saw her last minute.
How well we work. Look at that. Look at Shay. Shay's Thank you again for having us, AI Philly. Thank you, everyone. I appreciated it. This felt good.
Well, not a problem. Thanks again. I mean,
I wanted to ask some questions earlier, but I had screaming kids in the background, and I was just on daddy duty over here the whole time. What we do. So, but I definitely appreciate the information. This was a good build.
Yes, it was. Thank you, Brother Omawale. Okay, and I guess that concludes our session here.
Okay, no more question, I guess. So, well, thank you again for everything. That was very good. It's almost 3 o'clock. So yes, usually a good time to go. It's still sunny outside and enjoy the sun and have the rest of a good rest of your day. Next general meeting will be 14 days from now. So that's the 18th. Right. What do we have coming up, Tristan, Olivia? You know already?
So it's a general meeting, pretty much in regards to like what we have up and coming, but we'll talk more about that.
Oh, okay. So because we have a couple events coming up and we will need support first, probably for whatever we have coming up, like Kwanzaa or something. People have ideas of being outside during Kwanzaa. We'll see about that. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So I'm usually conclude with a prayer. So I will ask the ancestor to continue to protect us, to provide for those who need, to support us with our health, with our opportunities, and continue to help our organization and sister organization and individuals over there who are also participating in liberating our people. We continue to ask our ancestors to support us for the renaissance of the African people. That's a Ashe, Ashe.
Ashe.
Unity is our aim, and victory is our destiny. All right. So I'm gonna stop this live. Where is it stopping? All right. More live. So